I can't believe we're doing this. This time on Finnegan's Garage, we're working on my C10. Go ahead.
Make your toes letting over there.
Time to work on the C10 again. It looks pretty good, but it's going to look better.
Always gonna look better.
It's going to look better with that. Oh man. That is a sexy piece right there. What is this? This is a new independent front suspension for the C10. Why do we need a new one? Well, I wanted the truck to handle better and ride better and look better. And you can't really see the secret to all of that right now because it's not there, but you will. I was never really too excited or happy about the ride quality of the truck, nor the handling, and the airbags were a big part of that. So we're going to be changing that today. Bye-bye airbags. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Yeah, you're like, whatever. Don't care. Don't care. I'm just hungry. Essentially, what I want to do is explain to people at home why I'm doing this. Okay. You know, beyond the fact that your front clip is mandrel bent, stronger, nicer looking than what I have. But one of the things I didn't like about the air system was that when it was real low to the ground,
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's alright. When it was real low to the ground, it had a very soft ride. Squishy, felt like you were riding in a pillow down the road. Yeah. And in order to raise it up, you know, to get ground clearance, you know, at the 7, 8, 9 inch mark, the ride got firmer. And if you raised it all the way up, this thing actually cycled 14 inches of travel. If you raised it all the way up, the ride was really stiff. So the spring rate changed based on the ride height. And with your system, that's not going to happen, right?
No. Yeah, having the shock there, and I was explaining. But the hydro shock, the way we designed it, no matter where you're riding, the spring and shock rate stays the same. You know, so that's all the way up. And so if you come all the way down, the spring and shock travel stays the same at all times.
Okay, so we have a hydraulic cylinder up here.
Yes. And the shock piston and everything is inside the cylinder.
Okay.
So all the piston and valving and everything is in here. So no matter where you're riding, the spring and shock rate stays the same. And even with, say, coilovers, if you want to get to the track and lower it down 1 inch, well, you lose 1 inch of shock travel. With the hydro shocks, even with that, if you load 1 inch, you still got the same shock travel, the same stroke, nothing changes.
So a 5-inch stroke in the middle of the arm is going to give us 7, 8.
7, 8 inches.
Yeah. Which 8 inches for most any truck that lays flat on the ground is plenty.
Yeah.
And the great thing is you get that full 8 inches without sacrificing the ride quality. So I'm going to be able to lift this thing all the way up, run over speed bumps, and it's going to ride the same when it's all the way up versus when it's hovering over the ground an inch off the ground.
Any type of stock spindle that's made for a street vehicle that's used as a donor to go anything, these are actually made, they're designed and engineered to have 1.5 inches to 2 inches of travel.
Yeah.
So once you get beyond that point, they're wrong. The geometry goes wrong.
Yeah, everything with an aftermarket suspension in most cases is a compromise.
Yeah.
And this setup was a compromise between, I wanted, 13 years ago, I wanted as much travel as I could get. So this was set up for the wheel to stay vertical throughout the range of travel so that it wouldn't hit the fender. So there's not a lot of camber gain here, and you need camber gain when you want to go around corners. So this setup, when the truck's all the way on the ground, the wheel's straight up and down. When it's all the way down, the wheel's straight up and down. Your setup is basically ready to go handling.
It is, and it's tunable. So if you just want to have a cruise around vehicle, it's for that. But if you want to be able to gain camber as you go down, it's adjustment in the top, the heim joint in the top. Every quarter of an inch up is a 1/4 degree camber as you go down. This is a ARM design off of the lower's like the Mustang and the top's like a Camaro.
Yeah, it's
but back in the day, that's what we done. I've done it too.
We
just use what you found and made it work.
Yeah, that's literally what this was. This is a Scott's Hot Rods cross member, a Scott's Hot Rods lower control arm,
That's
and
good
then
stuff.
we made our own upper arms with spherical bearing pivots, and this was as good as we could do way back in 2005, but technology has come a lot further, we know a lot more, and we're literally applying NASCAR technology to the front end of this thing, because that's Jimmy's background. So now you're plotting out measurements on the floor based on what's already here, and then we're going to just cut the whole front end off of this truck. Go ahead. That was a lot of work before. Alright, how to replace a front clip. Step 1, cut the old trash off. Step 2, give yourself something to sit the new clip on.
Take lots of measurements.
Lots of measurements. Step 3, grind all the paint off. See all that? Ground all that off. Because that's going to get welded and then plated. Alright. What's step 4?
Step 4 is getting a new clip, slit up here, string it, square it, and weld it up.
God, this is easy.
Yeah.
It's practically done.
Practically.
Get your plate in it.
Are you good right there where it needs to be? Or?
Yeah. Go ahead and slide it in there, then we're going to put it to the outside. So this is how we do the front clips on a race car. We always put a front clip in this plate. That way when you crash the car and you got to replace the front clip, you just cut it off here and you always got this plate to go back to.
Ah, okay.
So that way if anything ever happens, you just cut it off here and go back to the original notes and everything goes back on.
Got it.
Gives you a good clean.
You want to take the porta power.
It's great that you assume I'm going to crash this. So this is where all the lines on the floor come into play.
Yep, we go back to our original line.
Be able to make sure that the center line of the spindle lines up with the line on the floor.
Actually the center line of the ball joint.
Oh, the ball joint.
Which is the center line of the spindle as well, yeah.
Okay. Now that'll make sure our wheelbase stays the same. So we've got that plate right there. And this is what's holding the bottom up, keeping this in line. What's gusseting these things?
A little piece of tube, and we cut out actually the same material as this 2x4. We just cut it. Little angle right here to give us some support, little stability in our frames. Because our clip right here is just a little bit smaller than the frame rail itself, so this right here is going to give us some support.
this is it. This is the Mittler Brothers Hydro Shocks kit, which this is produced by Mittler Brothers, but this is your design, right?
Yeah, well, it was my design and idea, and we kind of went together with Mittler Brothers and got it to a working product versus a sketch on paper. I literally texted Mike a sketch of it on a piece of paper of this shock, and he took it and went from there.
Mike's the owner of Mittler Brothers, and obviously they do really nice machine work because this is the end result. This is a coilover shock, and the top portion of it is a hydraulic cylinder. So what you've got going on here is the mount for the coilover is fully adjustable. And I believe this is the 5-inch version, there's a 4-inch version.
Yes.
And so what happens is you hit a switch, the hydraulic pump activates, fluid is controlled through a series of valves, filling this and extending the mount for the coilover. You know, the spring is not changing at all. The spring rate stays the same, but the mounting point moves up and down. The end result is you can lift your car or truck off the ground multiple inches without ever changing the characteristics of how your car or truck rides, which is cool. And the system is fairly compact. I won't say it's lightweight. This is not lighter than an airbag system, but it does have numerous advantages over using the airbags that are already on my C10.
So, you know, because horsepower is the easiest thing you ever build now, but the suspensions was getting left behind, and I think this product is one that's going to keep up with the horsepower.
Cool. And it's a pretty straightforward install. We're going to use a single battery to power the system.
Yes.
4 coilovers going at each corner of the truck, which, you know, mount pretty conventionally. It's just an eyelet at the top and the bottom.
Yes, basically, if a coilover will go in, these will go in as well.
Okay.
And that was another thing that I really was focused on, was keeping the shock the same diameter as a standard coilover, so we wouldn't have issues of having special mounting systems or whatever. Obviously, it's a little longer, but we've come up with an adjustable shock mount that takes care of that. So basically, if it's a coilover or bolt in, these are bolt in as well.
Okay. And so the kit's going to come with 4 hydro shocks, a switch panel. This is the electric motor, the pump portion of it. This is the fluid reserve tank. This here is another reserve tank that we can remote mount somewhere else to make it easier to fill, and as long as this stays above this, this system will work.
Exactly.
So you can hide that on the frame and then move this somewhere else.
Anywhere, yeah. And the pump can be mounted in any position, upside down, sideways. It don't have to be a certain area, so you can hide it wherever.
Okay. Another thing I like about this system is I'm used to plumbing old school hydraulics with real high pressure lines that need crimp fittings, which, you know, not a lot of people have a hydraulic crimper in their home garage. So this is the standard AN stuff you're used to that threads together with a collet inside of it. So you can assemble these at home, which is nice. This is the manifold. This is going to control the fluid in and out of every coilover, and it's also got some adjustability so you can control the rate at which it lifts and dumps?
Yes.
Okay.
Because each corner of your vehicle is going to weigh a little different, and 5 pounds will make it lift or go down different. So you got flow control valves to where you can at a raised level and go down level.
Okay. Cool. All right. And it even comes with the fittings and the fluid, which is nice.
Yeah.
What is the average guy going to spend on this system, and what is it missing that he's going to have to come up with on his own?
Actually, it's every part that you need for it is there. All the fluid comes with it. The wiring harness, other than hooking it to a battery, is the only thing you'll need. And the retail system on a price on a system like this is about $5,200. And it sounds expensive, but when you compare the quality and the performance that you're gaining, it's really about half price. Because these shocks, each shock is built specific for the vehicle that the customer is putting it on. So it's not just an off-the-shelf shock. So, you know, if you want a comfort ride, or if you want a sport ride, or if you want a full-blown race ride, you know, a race shock, we can build it. Each shock is built specific for the customer's vehicle.
Okay. And is it stainless steel or is it plated?
It's plated. It's a nickel plated, and each one has a triple wiper seal in them because we didn't want to have any of the residue for the show car guys. So.
I'm excited to try this because I've had many trucks with hydraulic systems on them, and they traditionally don't ride very good. Later in my low riding career, I actually had hydraulic accumulators, which are a nitrogen charged bladder that would tee in line and a hydraulic line between the cylinder and the pump, and that did improve the ride a whole bunch, but it still had its limitations.
Oh yeah.
So here's our new suspension. Got tubular control arms, TIG welded together. Billet aluminum upright. Wow, that is nice. And it bolts together, so if you crash, you can just bolt it back together. Alright, so all the way up, we are at
8 inches.
Let's see, okay, 8, and then go down to 15.
15.
So 7 inches of travel, which is just about what any self-respecting rocker dragging pickup needs. We go from flat on the ground to getting over any speed bump, no problem.
And wherever you ride, the suspension spring rate stays the same.
Yeah, look at that. Can you cycle it for me? Watch this. It cycles, the spring doesn't change. It's not getting compressed, it's not extending, so your spring rate is always the same. So you can go just as fast at a 5-inch ride height as you can at a 7. That is cool.
I sure did.
Very cool. Now all we gotta do is install the hydraulic system, plumb it and wire it.
Yep.
And then start all over again where I was, because the heads are in the same spot. Frame rails are a little tighter, and so the manifolds don't fit. So I get to do my other favorite job, which is build the headers. One of the more impressive things about this is that my last hydraulic system had 4 batteries sunk in between the frame rails under the bed. And if I went to a car show or went out cruising, by the end of the night, I had to charge all 4 of those batteries.
That's the same way with my hydros.
I mean, literally, you can set it. You can go to a show and raise this thing all up and down all day long, and crank it up and still go home. And you don't never have to. Well, I've never charged for them.
And the lines are so small. What is that, like a -4 line?
Yeah.
Yeah, my old hydraulic setup, it had 7/8 or 1 inch, I forget.
That's what mine had.
Monster lines that were hard to route through the chassis and everything.
You ever blow a line off inside the cab?
Oh, not inside the cab, thank God.
I did that one time. Oh my God, that was a mess.
Free grease bath.
Pretty bad.
And then on the safety side of it, say, you know, this thing's pretty much indestructible. But if you say you get on the road and you hit something and rip a line off, all you gotta do is jack it up, put a cap on this,
And it'll stay up.
it'll stay up. Yeah.
Right now he's adjusting the shock mount so that the chassis will lay flat on the ground when the hydro shock is completely collapsed.
Bump it. More. More.
You're close. The sway bar is super trick because it goes through the chassis and it's splined on both ends like a race car. And this is one that Jimmy's going to have to customize because he's got the end links on there, and there will be a piece of tubing
That welds in.
that will get welded in.
And then we'll cut it to length. And once we get the brakes and everything installed, we'll mount the tab and cut this to length and have a heim joint with a turnbuckle.
Yeah, we're not doing this now because these are not the wheels and tires that are going to go on there, and we want to make sure everything clears before we go finish that beautiful sway bar. Packaging the pump and the reservoir and everything right here just totally committed me to my decision about cutting out the middle of the bed floor and putting it on a hinge so that I actually have access to all this stuff. Because this truck, when it's flat on the ground, the entire frame is on the tarmac. You can't get a jack under it. Right in here you can see where the guys have cut out the bottom, the original control arms that we made for the truck, welded in a pocket, and some new lower mounts. Now, we gotta build some new upper mounts back here.
The valve system we're running now, we're actually running 2 valves per cylinder. And what we found on the very first set we done, after a period of 2 or 3 weeks, it would start leaking a little bit. You know, all hydraulics are gonna have a little bit of leakage. So we come up with or Midler come up with a deal to where we're running 2 valves. So when it's sitting here, it's actually got a neutral pressure between both valves, and it never leaks.
Yeah, I noticed that, you know, it's been about a month since you guys were here the first time when we installed most of this.
Yeah.
I haven't touched the truck, and it was still off the ground when you got here. It wasn't even crooked, so that was impressive. There was no puddles on the floor. You know, granted, I didn't drive it, but still, the fact that it stayed up in the air for a month was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was another one of my big main concerns was I don't want any. So if I set it in the shop and come back a year later, it's still going to be sitting there. Or if I decide to get in it and drive from North Carolina to Florida, it's going to stay the same. You know, I don't have to worry about sitting out hitting the switch and keep pumping it up or something. You know, it's going to stay exactly where we set it.
So we're close. We've got the valves mounted, rear hydro shocks are in and plumbed. I see we have a used 12-volt battery.
Yeah, we found on the ramp truck.
Who knows how dead that is because it came from the ramp truck. So in terms of the guy at home, he mounts everything, mounts the valves. The valves plug into the switch panel.
Yes.
The switch panel gets what, 12 volts?
12 volts.
Okay, probably off keyed source like your ignition or something.
Yeah.
And then from the pump, it's just a 4-gauge wire to the battery.
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's it.
And that's it.
Alternator charges the battery. This is the same battery you start your truck with.
Yes. They don't take any separate batteries or nothing to do it. And literally, I mean, we could raise and lower this thing 100 times and it doesn't pull the battery down.
Wow.
Very, very low amperage.
That's the part that blows my mind is I'm used to hydraulic systems that require multiple batteries. This one is somehow creating enough pressure to lift this thing off the ground without needing anything more than 12 volts, which is amazing to me.
Yeah.
So once it's all wired, we need to fill the system with fluid and then cycle it to get the air out. So we're going to fill it through the remote tank, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it takes about 3.5 to 4 quarts of fluid. And once you get all your lines tight, I mean, it's as simple as just capping it off with the fluid. And then about 2 cycles through the system and it bleeds itself.
Mm-hmm.
So once you get it full, you can hear the tank and the fluid coming through the vent system. Simple as that. Just it bleeds itself and it's ready to go.
Here we go. Cutting this out. No more putting gas inside of the bed and having it spill everywhere. No more random hole in the middle. We're going to cut one big hole right here in the center. That'll give us access to the fuel cell, the hydraulic pump, and the valves. And eventually I'll make a new cover that probably opens up and closes this all off. So here's how we do this. Piece of angled aluminum clamped down there. I can't get a clamp up here, so just 2 of these strong hand tool magnets that turn on and off. They're going to keep the plate where it needs to be. And then plasma cutter. That will guide me so I can make a straight cut to go along with my crooked videography. Yeah. right now, you guys are adjusting the rate at which it goes down?
Yeah. Yeah, the speed it goes down and comes up, we can adjust it so we can get everything leveled up.
So it's just an Allen wrench on that fitting?
Mm-hmm.
So is that just a restriction?
Yeah, it's just flow control valves. So it's just restricting the flow. And so we're going to try to adjust them and get them to where they're...
So there's ones on both sides. That's the one marked sun, I'm guessing?
Yeah, you got 2 rears and 2 fronts.
So you can control how fast it raises and how fast it lowers?
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, that's it for this episode of Finnegan's Garage. I want to thank Jimmy and all the guys from MRC Fabrications for coming out and turning my C10 into something both my boys are going to want to play with.
And can go fast.
And can go fast.
While you're low.
Without them inside. It's like video games. You're going to love it. Ooh.